Hey guys, Serac here, and today I'm going to take you through one of the decks that I've been playing at my locals, and it is Going Second Swordsoul. So, Swordsoul is obviously a very, very popular deck at the moment, and most people build it to go first. I've decided to adapt it and use a lot of the really, really strong Going Second cards to essentially just brute force my way through my opponent's board and lock the game up that way, by relying on a simplified board state, and hopefully they've wasted all of their resources trying to make their big turn one play, and I can win by capitalising on that. So, we have 3 copies of Swordsoul of Moye. Normal or special summoned, reveal a Swordsoul card or wyrm monster in your hand, make a Swordsoul token. It's a level 4 tuner. And then, if it's sent to the graveyard as synchro material, draw 1 card. Very, very simple. Helps you chain block with your synchro monster effects, is a level 4, it's the best Swordsoul to have in your hand, it's really, really strong, it's amazing. 3 copies of Incredible Ecclesia, the Virtuous. This can special summon itself if your opponent controls more monsters than you do. Obviously, that's a real advantage going second, because it means you're not relying on your normal summon quite as much. And then you contribute this card, special summon a Swordsoul monster from your hand or deck. And then if a fusion monster is sent to your graveyard this turn, add this card from your graveyard to your hand. We're not playing the DPE version, so that is less relevant in this build, but if you are playing a DPE version, then that is a really important interaction to know of. But mainly, this is just because it gets every Swordsoul card out of our deck. We then have 3 copies of Swordsoul Strategist Long 1. Discard another Swordsoul card or wyrm monster, special summon this card, and special summon 1 Swordsoul token. If it's used as a synchro material, inflict 1200 damage. This card wins the game in time, and is your main way of making level 10 synchros. The other only important thing is the fact that it is very costly if the effect gets negated or you don't get to synchro with this card, because discarding a Swordsoul card or wyrm monster is a hefty cost to pay if it doesn't go through. And then we play 2 copies of Swordsoul of Tyar. This is your best later game Swordsoul. You can send the spells and so on, which enable you to make tokens from the graveyard. And it's very, very useful in that regard. So things like Sacred Summit plus this. Sacred Summit is a 1-card level 8 synchro because of this card, if you lack other wyrms or Swordsoul names. And then if it's sent to the graveyard, you get to send 1 from the deck to the graveyard. So then we play the Tenyi package, and I am playing 3 copies of Tenyi Spirit Vishuddha. Why? Because I'm going second, and this card is amazing going second, because while you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can banish this card from hand or graveyard, target 1 card your opponent controls, and return it to the hand. We're also playing Kaijus in this deck, and bouncing your Kaijus is very, very fun. And is one of the hilarious interactions with this deck. You summon a Kaiju over their big monster, you bounce it with Vishuddha, and then you summon it over another big monster. Very, very strong, and that's why we run 3. 3 Tenyi Spirit Ashuna. This is obviously the most important generic Tenyi, because it special summons a Tenyi monster from the deck. And it's also level 7, which means with Adhara, we make level 8 synchros. It's amazing how the deck all works out together. Then we play 2 copies of Tenyi Spirit Adhara, and this allows you to add banished ones back to your hand, and it's also a tuner. Then finally, for our Tenyis, we play 1 Tenyi Spirit Shithana, because sometimes we use Baxia or Yazi to help break our opponent's board, and it's very funny with cards like Shithana just to bring stuff back, and then pop another card of your opponent's. We then have 3 Vessel for the Dragon Cycle. Send a wyrm monster from your deck to your graveyard. If you control a non-effect monster, add from your deck to your hand 1 Tenyi monster with a different name. Obviously, incredibly good card, sets up your graveyard and searches your hand. Sets up your hand. That's why we're playing this card. It's really, really good. Three Swordsoul Emergence, because Rota is a good card. And also gives us that little bit of level modulation that sometimes we need if we want to make things like Shen Chen. 2 Heavenly Dragon Circle. If we can make OTKs, this card really, really helps in making those OTKs. This card also helps us get, obviously, any card out of our deck that we want. And just aids us with consistency. It swaps tenyis out for Swordsoul monsters. It can tribute off tokens. It's quick play, so we can use it in the battle phase to get extra damage through. It's just a really, really flexible card. And then, obviously, it also has a nice, neat graveyard effect that lets us search a tenyi if it's in the graveyard. If the game goes a little bit longer, we might need to search another Vishuda to get an extra bounce, or similar. 1 Swordsoul Sacred Summit. This is our Monster Reborn for Swordsoul cards. Again, very, very good card. And another reason why Taya is very good late game, because we can obviously special summon it out of the graveyard with this, and then immediately use its effect to banish this from the graveyard, and make a token, and make a level 8 Synchro. And then finally for our consistency cards, we're playing 3 Pot of Prosperity. Now, this deck is not an OTK deck. This deck is aiming to leverage the fact that if we can get ahead on card advantage by using our big going second blowout cards, we can trade more efficiently than our opponent. Swordsoul is not a good deck at playing from behind. It needs to be ahead. And to be ahead, you need to be able to see the right cards depending on the matchup. This obviously lets us dig an extra 3 or 6 cards deep to see if we need that extra Swordsoul name, or if we need that extra piece to break their board. Our extra deck is obviously very, very flexible. Generally, we don't need all of it. We can usually find names to banish with this card. We're going to normally be banishing 3, but sometimes in a pinch you do need to banish 6, and the added consistency from this card is 100% worth it. Also, because Desires is now at 1, Prosperity is more useful than Desires. So, for our board breaking cards, we play 3 Gamciel, because bouncing this with Vishuda is funny, and also sticking this in a Sky Striker main monster zone is also funny, because they cannot play the game. If you do that, you can just do whatever you want, and then OTK them out of nowhere. It's a really, really good card. Kaijus make the game so much easier for you. You get rid of their Dragoon, their big boss monster that they've dumped on you, their negate, maybe you need to get a monster effect through, you can give them their 1 monster effect, you clog up their main monster zone if they're a Sky Striker player. There's a whole lot of different ways, and the interaction between Kaijus and Vishuda is amazing, to say the least. 3 Lightning Storm. Back row decks suck, so we play 3 Lightning Storm to get rid of those. People who want to play Monkey Flip Eldritch get hosed by this. People who set loads of Dogmatica punishments get hosed by this. And also, if they have no Omni Negates in their main monster zone and can't negate a spell card, well, you just get to blow up their main monsters instead. Or, similarly, force their negate and then go off without a hitch. In a similar vein, we have our 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. Again, very, very strong going second card. Forces our opponent, it completely locks their effects. Obviously nowhere near as good against back row decks, but that's A, what the side is for, and B, what Lightning Storm is for. No monsters can activate their effects. You know what this card does. It's incredibly strong. And again, just allows us to go off completely interruption-free. We then have 3 copies of Evenly Matched. Trap negates are in relatively short supply, so evenly matched is obviously another really, really good way of ensuring our opponent's board goes. Again, this plus a kaiju is very, very good because it ensures they have no negates left. It will obviously force out their negate. This is not once per turn as well, so if your opponent happens to have a trap negate and you have two of these, then you can still use it. Yeah, insane card. Really, really helps breaking boards, stops them from using their graveyard to recur things, especially if they've made monsters that they only have one copy of. Helps against things like DPE, forcing them to chain its effect to the activation of evenly matched. Or they have to keep the DPE, but then they have nothing to destroy except itself. Again, loads of cool interactions you can do with evenly matched. And then finally, our one last card is Swordsoul Blackout. This is obviously a search target for things like your synchros, and obviously really, really helps you going into turn 3 and beyond. As well as the fact that it also makes a token later in the game, again, helping with cards like Taya. So that is the main deck, and for the extra deck, we play one of the brand new Swordsoul. Obviously, I have not tried this very much because it only officially released a few days ago, but in theory, it's really, really good. It's a sort of semi-floodgate. It draws you an extra card if you synchro summon another wyrm monster. It inflicts 1200 damage, helping you win in time. It banishes cards, giving you more interruptions. It's really, really good at helping you secure the game. And again, it's also really, really good on a simplified board state when your opponent is in top deck mode. They don't have much that they can do each turn. You forcibly banishing a card every turn can really hinder their game plan. We then play one Swordsoul Sovereign Chen Ying. This is your big Chungus who gets absolutely huge. Unfortunately, we're not playing Desires, so it doesn't get that big. And again, also provides you with much needed disruption and removal that's also non-targeting and non-destroying. So that is also very, very useful. 2 copies of Swordsoul Yugioh. This searches any Swordsoul card and also is an imperm on a stick. 1 Baron de Fleur. Baron is an incredible card. It's an Omni-Negate. It's a pop once per turn, and it can stick itself back in the extra deck to allow you to go off again and reset its Omni-Negate. This is obviously the level 10 you're making most often. 1 Adamant Spater Risen Dragite. This is a spell trap negate because we normally have a water monster in our graveyard with Shithana and Moye. And it's also a nice 3k body. 1 Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. Again, helps us banish our opponent's monster effects, and helps us OTK by allowing us to attack twice. Ruddy Rose Dragon is for graveyard hate. That's the only reason we play it. It's one of the cards we're banishing most often with Pot of Prosperity, but in certain matchups this card will just win you the game. 1 Yazi, very easy to make, helps us with the level modulation that we have access to, helps us break the board, and also searches any wyrm monster from our deck and doesn't negate it. And also, that's also important, it can't be targeted by an opponent's card effects, which can blank a lot of your opponent's removal. 1 Baxia, similarly, shuffle stuff into the deck, and then you can also, to help break the board, so non-destructive removal, very, very useful, and also allows you to sort of swap out cards in your graveyard to special summon stuff. Works really well with Tenyi Shithana, and allows you to extend that way. And also helps you make Chow Feng. as a level 9 synchro, and that allows you to lock your opponent out of light monsters for turn 3 and beyond. Qiaofeng is mainly used as a floodgate in this deck, but also has a very nice card effect when it is destroyed. Our final synchro we play is one Shen Shen. This is just a very nice floodgate that we have access to. Again, this is another card we're banishing semi-regularly with Pot of Prosperity, but when it is useful, it is very, very useful. To finish off, we have one Shaman of the Tenyi, extension, Link 2, very, very easy to summon, very, very good effect, allowing us to special summon monsters, but remember, it does lock you out of monster effects from the extra deck after you use its effect. And then finally, we play 2 copies of Monk of the Tenyi as our non-effect monsters that you have to run when you're playing the Tenyi version of this deck. So, that is the deck. It's a very different spin on Swordsoul compared to the standard DPE or Tenyi versions that go first and play handtraps. But I think it's a really fun and unexpected way to play Swordsoul, and you have the advantage that by blinding second, you will normally get what you want to go second. So I hope you enjoy that deck, and I will see you again soon with more budget decks, as opposed to decks that will cost you a mortgage. So, see you again soon.